Kotwal, who is the Senior Executive Vice President and member of the board on Larsen and Toubro, joins us. Thanks, Mr. Kotwal, for joining us on the show. Now, we've all been tracking the debates and all the issues that have been raised, but the broader sense that one is getting is that that the government appears to be fairly concerned in terms of the liability, and it has enforced tougher rules as far as private sector companies are concerned, their liability as well as some of the guidelines within the bill. As an interested participant, how do you really see your future plans being impacted once this bill is passed?
Yeah, it's nice to be talking to you. Now, let me start with a broader picture. It is an absolutely good thing that finally things are converging to some kind of a conclusion, which really means in a broader sense that what we have been waiting for will happen over the next few months and years, and that is that the spectrum of opportunities which will open up for the Indian industry will really start happening once this bill is passed. That's the better part of it, which is the larger part. Now, when it comes to industry, now the participation of industry can be at various levels. Now, we at L&T are looking at participation primarily beginning with the manufacturing piece and the construction piece. Now, in manufacturing, as you know, we have been looking at various aspects of manufacturing, including the main reactors, the reactor pressure vessel that is called, the steam generators and various other specialized equipment, the electricals, the valves, and of course in construction we have been looking at various parts and in fact construction of total plants. So this is our kind of involvement as we see it in the first stage. Now, what has happened is that in this particular bill, it will at least allow us to look at this kind of business with certain boundary conditions. As you would understand, no commercial organization, and we are no exception, would be able to operate in any kind of manufacturing space with unlimited liabilities for any contracts. And what this does is, apart from the liabilities that are now clearly identified as the operator's liabilities, which is to do with the owner of the plant, in this case, of course, NPCIL or in the government agency, when it comes to participation by manufacturers like us or construction people, what we would like to have is contracts with defined liabilities. And this bill could lead to that kind of a role. This is what we hope, and we are confident that it will happen in that way. Yeah, if you look at the entire investment per se, rolling it out over the total plan, the plan is up to 2032 to have 63 gigawatts of nuclear power. Now, that's the plan. You could call it an optimistic plan. But if you look at even the realistic kind of picture, the investments required as a total plant for this kind of period would range between 140 to about 100 billion US dollars. That kind of investment would be required over a period of time. Now, let's take even the lower figure, and you're talking about in the next maybe 20 years, this kind of investment taking place, which is the need for supporting even a realistic way of looking at the total output that is required. Now, out of this, let's say the nuclear island itself would constitute about 35% in a very broad sense. And then there would be the turbine island and then the balance of plant. So we are looking at a very large opportunity, but how much of it can be converted into an Indian opportunity will very largely depend on the way the negotiations proceed between the NPCIL and the concerned foreign technology providers, and that is where the real indigenous content will be decided. We at L&T are of the opinion that just looking at L&T's own potential, we expect something between $1.5 to $2 billion per year kind of opportunity opening up for us, given various conditions, obviously looking at possibilities of participation by the Indian industry as a whole. We are not operators of nuclear power plants. In fact, although many people have talked about various levels of involvement in the nuclear space, we have not really carved out any particular plan in our strategic initiative in the next 5 years of really participating as an operator in any nuclear plant. Our plans, as I mentioned before, have stemmed from the fact that we have a very large presence in the construction and manufacturing piece. We would like to grow that to the next level where we can take on a whole lot of equipment on a consolidated basis, do a kind of an EPC role, but not really an operator role. So this particular clause does not really impact us as L&T in any way. If you look at the nuclear scene, although we have been now in the field since the late 60s, and therefore right from the first nuclear reactor onwards, we have been really pioneering the entire effort, the indigenous effort in the nuclear program. So primarily, the space that we are looking at would be very largely, in the next 10 years, would be largely reactors in the Indian scene, that which means partly the reactors which are designed and built in India, and part of them would be with designs coming from outside India, but primarily for the domestic. The export opportunity is also quite significant. It will develop over the years, and that is in two parts. One is companies like ourselves who have already prepared ourselves for export by acquiring the necessary N and NPT stamps from ASME. This is a mandatory requirement for any export of nuclear grade equipment outside the country. And we as a company have already obtained that credentials, and therefore we are ready for that kind of export. So equipment could be exported. Now, we have actually in a small way already begun exports of not the core nuclear reactor equipment, but equipment to store radioactive waste. That kind of a thing has already begun, and that is something which is just a small beginning, but it can grow. So in the first 8 to 10 years, I expect the opportunities really to open up in supply of equipment to various plants outside India. Now, in the case of the overall plants coming up, getting set up outside India, the real opportunity will be if NPCIL, who have got a tried and trusted design of the heavy water moderated reactors, if there are opportunities where working together with them, we can offer a complete solution for any country outside India, certainly then we will have a larger role in that kind of a setup. So this is for clarifying the opportunities outside India. Now, when it comes to experience in having dealt with the Indian scene, of course, I don't have to repeat, but as far as the external world is concerned, we need to have a lot of experience in dealing with foreign customers, the requirements in various countries. And as you know, in the non-nuclear areas, where, for example, the process plant equipment, nearly 60 to 70% of what we produce is for export. So we have got a very wide experience in dealing with requirements from various countries. We have dealt with customers, very large companies outside India, and we have understood the requirements. So that gives us a very good base to export equipment. So this is what I would like to respond to your question.